I think if you look at the fact that the Olympus scandal has gone on for 20 years, that proves that there's something very wrong with governance. The legislative framework that we talked about, non-executive directors, but you should have a majority of non-execs on the board. You should have legislation which makes the non-executives personally accountable, so they really do their job. They should have nothing to fear if they do their job. Human beings are human beings everywhere, including in the United States. He's an American citizen, so I can tease him. But the difference between the United States or United Kingdom or Europe and Japan is when wrongdoing is discovered, you can't carry on in the way it has done. Once wrongdoing is exposed, there's no escape, because people like you, and we've seen, everything from Watergate to the British expenses scandal of the MPs. The media are ruthless. It keeps the democracy strong. And I put in the Japan Press Club my belief that a free press in Japan is the most important element. So Mr. Takayama standing up and saying the payments were appropriate, that could never happen. He would be laughed out. He could not stand up and say he's going and then he's not going. That's something very peculiar. And that comes down to the common sense, instinctive judgment. And in this case, they have had the protection de facto of the institutional shareholders, not criticizing them. And it's they who vote who's a director and who's not a director. So I think the fundamental difference is the cross-shareholding keeps everything comfortable, cozy, nice. No confrontation, no challenge, no takeover. And that, the biggest single strength of effective corporate governance is shareholder activism, not being passive and, in effect, compliant. So as you saw with the American and the British large shareholders in Olympus, they made public statements, very clear, very explicit. These are long-term shareholders of Olympus, not hedge funds. That's the difference. It's what's tolerated. It's what's the level. And people have explained to me what he bowed and said sorry, and in Japan we forgive people. But you don't. If you steal a piece of chewing gum, you go to prison probably in Japan. And senior people, powerful people, well-paid people, like me as a director of a company, should be scrutinized, challenged, and if we're found wrong, you can't excuse yourself by a bow and an apology. Take the consequences, and that's a cultural norm. What's the cultural norm? So you can have technical discussions, number of non-executives, all these type of issues, but it comes down to really the shareholders being active and what public opinion will deem to be acceptable.
オリンパスの場合、不正が20年にわたって続いたことを見ると、やはり企業統治の上で大きな問題が存在していたことが分かります。で、技術的な話するなら、社外取締役何名いれば、役員の何割ぐらい社外取締役にすべきなのか、どのような法的な制度を設けて、その責任を明確にするか、その議論も必要なんですが、私はどちらかといえば、一番大きな条件は積極的な投資家、積極的な株主ですね。で、積極的な株主というのは、株式の持ち合いの相手先じゃなくて、本当に意味の、独立した立場で企業の経営陣の実績を評価して、不十分であれば 声を上げて批判したりすることですね。日本の独特の株式の持ち合い制度においては、暗黙の了解として相手を批判しないことになってますので、いつまでもこの問題の解決が進まないんですね。ですので、ぜひ積極的な株主が増えるような環境づくりを図るべきでしょう。それは企業統治の基本だと思います。
はい、それでは時間も迫ってきましたので、会場からの質問を最後とさせていただきますが、どうしてもという方、じゃあその前、先ほどから手を挙げている今の女性の前の方の段ですね。
One more question. We'll have one more question.
朝日新聞の記者の牧内と申します。一点だけ教えてください。今回、宇藤さんはオリンパスから突然社長職を解職されたことになりますが、今後、オリンパスを損害賠償請求、訴えを起こすことを検討していますでしょうか。お願いします。
Will you be bringing suit against Olympus for wrongful dismissal?